Imagine walking into a luxury hotel, one that you own, only to be treated like you don't belong there. That's exactly what happened to Marcus Reed, a self-made businessman who built his fortune from nothing. One day, he decided to visit his newly acquired five-star hotel, dressed casually, just to see how his staff treated guests. But instead of respect, he was ignored, looked down on, and then kicked out. What happened next? No one saw it coming. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. Stay till the end. You won't believe how this one ends. Marcus Reed wasn't just any businessman. He was a self-made millionaire who had worked his way up from nothing. He knew what it felt like to be overlooked, to be treated as if he didn't belong. That's why he always believed in treating people with respect, because he had seen what happens when others judge based on appearance. After years of hard work, Marcus had finally achieved something huge. He had just bought his first luxury hotel, a five-star establishment known for its world-class service. But he didn't want to just sign papers and sit in an office. He wanted to see the reality, how his staff treated everyday guests. So he made a plan. Instead of arriving in a fancy car with a team of assistants, he walked in alone, dressed casually in jeans and a hoodie. No expensive suit, no flashy watch. Just a regular man, stepping into a place where he should have been welcomed with open arms. But that's not what happened. The hotel lobby was breathtaking, golden chandeliers, velvet seating, a marble floor that gleamed under the lights. Every detail screamed wealth and exclusivity. Guests in designer outfits were greeted warmly, offered champagne, and treated like royalty. But when Marcus approached the front desk, the energy shifted. The receptionist barely looked up. The moment she saw him, her attitude changed. And what happened next? Marcus never forgot it. If you were in his place, how would you have expected to be treated? Comment, respect, or dismiss below. Marcus stood at the front desk, waiting for the receptionist to acknowledge him. He had been standing there for almost a minute, watching as she typed on her computer, not even bothering to glance up. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, I'd like to check in." The receptionist finally looked at him, but only briefly. Her expression was flat, uninterested. "Do you have a reservation?" Marcus nodded. "No, but I'd like to book a room." Her eyebrow twitched slightly. "We're fully booked." Marcus raised an eyebrow. That was a lie, and he knew it. He had already checked the system before coming in. There were plenty of available rooms, but he decided to play along. "That's strange," he said, keeping his voice calm, "because I checked earlier today, and it showed that you had several suites available." The receptionist's lips pressed into a thin line. Those rooms must have been booked in the last few hours. Marcus glanced around. The hotel wasn't that busy. A few guests were lounging in the lobby, sipping champagne, waiting for their keys. But it wasn't a full house. He looked back at the receptionist. "Are you sure? Not even a standard room?" "We're completely at capacity," she said without hesitation. Marcus knew she was lying, but instead of confronting her, he decided to test her one more time. "What about tomorrow? Maybe I can book a room in advance," she sighed, as if this conversation was wasting her time. "We don't take last-minute walk-in reservations, only online bookings." Another lie. He had personally approved policies allowing guests to book directly at the front desk. This wasn't a real rule. This was a rule for him. Before Marcus could say anything else, another guest approached the desk. A well-dressed man in a suit. The receptionist's attitude changed instantly. Her expression brightened. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Grand Royale. How can I assist you?" The man smiled. "I'd like to book a room." Without hesitation, she nodded. "Of course. Let me check our availability." Marcus watched as she pulled up the system. The same system she just told him was full. Within seconds, she handed the man a key card. "You're all set, sir. Enjoy your stay." Marcus felt his patience slipping. He turned back to her. "So, you're fully booked for me, but you have rooms for him." The receptionist hesitated. He had a reservation. The lie was so obvious it almost made Marcus laugh. "I just heard him say he needed to book a room. So, which one is it?" Her face turned red. "Sir, I don't have to explain hotel policies to you." Marcus exhaled slowly. He wasn't going to let this go, but before he could say another word, someone new stepped in, the hotel manager. He was a tall man in his mid-40s, dressed in an expensive suit, radiating authority. He glanced at Marcus, then at the receptionist. "Is there a problem?" Before Marcus could answer, the receptionist spoke first. "This man is insisting on booking a room, but we're full." The manager turned to Marcus with a forced smile. "Sir, as my staff explained, we are at full capacity tonight. I'm sure you understand." Marcus could tell that the manager had already decided that he wasn't worth his time. His tone was polite, but his body language said something else. "You don't belong here." Marcus decided to push one last time. "If you're fully booked, why did you just check in another guest right in front of me?" The manager stiffened. He glanced at the receptionist, who avoided eye contact. "That was a VIP client," he lied smoothly. Marcus almost smirked. "A VIP client? Funny, since I'm the one who actually owns this place." But he didn't reveal himself yet. Instead, he simply asked, "What about a suite?" "I don't mind paying extra." The manager's expression remained neutral, but his voice turned colder. "We don't have any suites available." Marcus knew that was a lie, too. "So, there's not a single room available in this entire hotel?" he asked. "That's correct." Marcus nodded slowly. "Interesting." At that moment, 2 more guests walked up. Another couple, dressed in high-end designer clothing. Before they could even speak, the receptionist greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome to the Grand Royale. Checking in?" "Yes," the woman said. "Do you have any suites available?" The receptionist immediately started typing. "Of course, ma'am. Let me get that set up for you." Marcus just stood there, watching the scene unfold. He didn't even need to say anything. The proof was right in front of him. The manager shifted uncomfortably, realizing what had just happened. Marcus turned back to him. "Are you sure you're fully booked?" The manager cleared his throat. "Sir, this is a private business. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone." And there it was. Marcus nodded. Understood. Then the manager did something that pushed things even further. He looked at hotel security. "Please escort this man out of the lobby." Marcus almost laughed. They were kicking him out of the very hotel he owned. The security guard hesitated for a second, as if something felt off about the situation. But when the manager gave him a sharp look, he nodded and walked toward Marcus. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Marcus kept his composure. He could have revealed everything right then and there. He could have watched their faces crumble in panic. Where was the fun in that? Instead, he smiled and walked toward the exit. But before leaving, he turned back to the manager and said one final thing. "I'll be back. And trust me, you're going to regret this." The manager smirked, thinking he had won. "Have a good night, sir." Marcus didn't look back. But inside, he was already planning his return. And when he came back, their lives would never be the same. The next morning, the hotel staff gathered in the lobby, buzzing with excitement. The manager had announced that a VIP guest would be arriving, and everyone had been instructed to be on their best behavior. The receptionist, the same one who had turned Marcus away, stood extra straight, smoothing down her uniform. The hotel manager adjusted his tie, making sure he looked professional, Other staff members lined up, preparing for a guest who, according to the manager, was very important to the future of the hotel. None of them had any idea who they were about to meet. A black luxury car pulled up to the entrance. The valet rushed forward to open the door. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out. It was Marcus. But this time, he wasn't wearing jeans and a hoodie. He was in a perfectly tailored designer suit, a luxury watch worth more than some people's yearly salaries, and an unmistakable air of power. And he wasn't alone. Behind him were his legal team, his executive assistant, and 2 board members. The entire hotel staff stood frozen. None of them knew what to do. The receptionist's face drained of color. The manager shifted nervously, trying to figure out why this man looked familiar. Then Marcus locked eyes with them. And in that moment, they knew. The man they had disrespected. The man they had lied to. The man they had kicked out. He was the owner. The receptionist's hands started shaking. The manager took an instinctive step back. The entire lobby fell into silence. Marcus walked in, straight to the front desk, and looked the receptionist dead in the eye. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'd like to check in." The receptionist opened her mouth, but no words came out. Marcus tilted his head. "What's wrong? No rooms available?" She stammered. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize what?" Marcus asked. "That I actually belong here?" The manager, now fully panicked, jumped in. "Mr. Reed, I had no idea." Marcus held up a hand. "Save it." The manager swallowed hard. "Sir, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Marcus repeated. "You refused me service, lied to my face, had security throw me out of my own property." The manager's face turned red. I deeply apologize." Marcus wasn't done. "Let me ask you something. If I wasn't the owner, if I had come back today as a regular customer, would you have treated me any differently?" The manager didn't answer. Marcus continued, his tone steady. "You wouldn't have, would you? Because in your mind, I wasn't good enough to be here. I didn't look the part." Still silence. Marcus turned to his legal team. "Get HR on the line. We're making some staff changes today." The receptionist's eyes widened in horror. "Sir, please, I need this job." Marcus met her gaze. "You should have thought about that before you treated me like I was beneath you." The manager tried to backpedal. "Mr. Reed, I've been working here for 10 years. And in 10 years, you never learned how to treat people with basic respect?" The manager's mouth opened, but he had no defense. Marcus shook his head. "Pack your things. You're done." The manager was fired on the spot. The receptionist, gone. The rest of the staff stood frozen, watching everything unfold. Then Marcus turned to them. His voice was clear, strong, and commanding. "This hotel is built on luxury, but more importantly, it should be built on respect. If you think someone doesn't deserve good service because of how they look, you don't belong here. If you believe in treating all guests with dignity, I welcome you to stay. But let me be clear, this is not a place for discrimination." Silence. Then, slowly, the remaining staff started clapping, because not everyone agreed with what had happened the night before. Some of them had seen how Marcus was treated and had felt uncomfortable, but they had stayed silent. Now, watching the truth unfold, they were relieved. Marcus nodded at them. "From now on, we do things differently. Understood?" A chorus of "Yes, sir" followed. Marcus took a deep breath. He had made his point, but he wasn't done yet. Because what happened next? It would shock everyone. Marcus had made his point loud and clear. The staff had seen firsthand what happens when you judge someone by their appearance, instead of treating them with respect. The manager was gone. The receptionist was fired. But the real lesson? It was just beginning. As Marcus walked through the hotel, something unexpected happened. Other employees, housekeepers, bellboys, even the chefs, started approaching him. Some looked nervous, others looked guilty. One housekeeper, an older woman named Maria, hesitated before speaking. "Mr. Reed, I saw what happened last night. I wanted to say something, but I was scared I'd lose my job." Another worker stepped forward. "We all knew how the manager treated certain guests, but no one ever thought anything would change." Marcus listened. These weren't the people he was angry with. They were victims of the same toxic work environment. Then, something even more shocking happened. A young man wearing a security uniform walked up. His name tag read James. "Mr. Reed," he said, looking nervous, "I need to tell you something." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." James took a deep breath. The manager didn't just discriminate against guests. He treated staff the same way. He gave promotions to his friends, cut hours for people he didn't like, and even took bribes from certain guests to get them upgrades. Marcus's jaw clenched. "You're saying he was running a corrupt system?" James nodded. "Yes, sir. And I have proof." That's when he pulled out his phone. He had recordings, emails, messages. Marcus took the phone and scanned through the messages. There it was, evidence of everything. Staff complaints that were ignored, requests for promotions denied without reason, and worst of all, a pattern of discrimination. Marcus had thought firing the manager was enough. But now, this was much bigger. The hotel wasn't just dealing with one bad employee. It was dealing with an entire culture of corruption. Marcus made a decision right then and there. This wasn't just about punishing a few people. This was about fixing the entire system. He turned to James. "You've been working here for how long?" 2 years, sir." Marcus nodded. "Consider yourself promoted." James's eyes widened. "Sir?" "You had the courage to speak up when no one else did," Marcus said. "That's the kind of leadership this hotel needs." James was stunned, but Marcus wasn't done yet. He turned to the rest of the staff. "I'm launching a full investigation. Any employee who has been treated unfairly, speak now or come to my office later. No one is losing their job for telling the truth." One by one, employees started stepping forward. The more they spoke, the more the truth came out. This wasn't just about Marcus getting kicked out. This was about years of mistreatment, unfair firings, and racial discrimination that had been ignored. And now, it was over. Marcus called his legal team. A full HR audit was put in place. Every unfair decision made under the previous manager was reversed. Employees who had been overlooked for promotions were reinstated. The toxic workplace culture was being erased. And then came the biggest shock of all. Marcus received a phone call from a news station. Someone had leaked the story. The footage of Marcus being turned away had gone viral. Social media exploded. They threw out the owner. Karma hit fast. This is why you treat everyone with respect. He's changing the entire company. This is leadership. Marcus hadn't planned for this to become public, but once the story was out, it couldn't be stopped. And honestly, he didn't care, because the truth needed to be seen. The hotel's reputation took a hit at first. Some guests canceled their reservations, not wanting to support a business that had been exposed for discrimination. But then, something amazing happened. New guests started booking rooms. People who had never stayed at the hotel before said they wanted to support real change. Some guests even wrote messages on their reservations, here because of the new policies, supporting businesses that stand for respect. This is what leadership looks like, Marcus realized something important. Yes, his hotel had made a mistake. Yes, it had failed him. But when given the chance to change, it had. And people respected that. As Marcus stood in the newly renovated lobby, one that now had a wall of recognition for employees who went above and beyond, he smiled. He had come here expecting to check on his staff. Instead, he had changed the entire business. One small act of discrimination had revealed a much bigger problem. But now, this hotel would never be the same again. Marcus had come to the hotel expecting to see how his staff treated guests. He left having changed the entire business. What started as a personal test turned into something much bigger. It exposed a culture of discrimination, unfair treatment, and corruption. But it also showed that change was possible. The manager was gone. The receptionist had been fired. But Marcus knew that removing a few bad apples wasn't enough. The entire system had to change. So he made sure it did. Within days, he launched a new training program for every employee. This wasn't just about customer service. It was about respect. Every staff member, from housekeepers to executives, had to go through mandatory diversity and inclusion training. The goal was simple. Make sure no guest is ever treated the way Marcus was. But he didn't stop there. He created a new hiring policy, ensuring that promotions were based on merit, not favoritism. Employees who had been overlooked for years were finally getting the opportunities they deserved. For the first time, the hotel felt like it was running the way it should have all along. And the world noticed. After the story went viral, people were curious. Would the hotel recover, or would it be permanently damaged by the scandal? The answer shocked everyone. Instead of losing business, the hotel's reputation skyrocketed. Guests wanted to support a business that took action instead of making excuses. They booked rooms not because of luxury, but because of values. And the employees? They were happier than ever. For the first time, they felt like they worked in a place where everyone was valued. But what about Marcus? What did he learn from all of this? That sometimes being underestimated is the best advantage you can have. Because when people think you're just another customer, they show you who they really are. And when that happens, you get the power to change everything. Marcus could have stayed silent. He could have walked away. But instead, he stood up. And that one decision changed lives. Now it's your turn to think. Have you ever been judged unfairly? Have you ever watched someone get treated differently just because of how they look? And if you have, did you stay silent or did you stand up? Because the next time you see it happen, you have a choice. You can ignore it. Or you can be like Marcus and change everything. This story proves something powerful. Respect is free, but disrespect is expensive. The hotel staff thought Marcus was just another customer. They judged him without knowing who he really was. And in the end, they lost everything because of their own actions. But here's the real question. How many times does this happen in everyday life? How many people are looked down on, ignored, or treated unfairly just because they don't look the part? This wasn't just about Marcus. This was about everyone who has ever been judged before being given a chance. And now, it's time to ask you something. Have you ever been treated unfairly? Have you ever watched someone else get mistreated? And when it happened, did you say something? Or did you stay silent? Comment yes if you've ever been judged unfairly. Comment no if you haven't. If you believe everyone deserves respect, comment respect for all. Let's see how many people agree. Have you ever spoken up for someone who was being mistreated? Share your story in the comments. We're reading every single one. Like if you believe kindness should always win. Share this story to remind the world never judge a book by its cover, because the next time you assume something about a person, you might be making the biggest mistake of your life.